All right, I think we're just about ready to go. It's noon, and today our topic is related to getting business out of black soldier fly. Our specialists today, Uka Marjanen and Saverio Danubio, will be slightly differently online today. So Uka will be joining later on the chat. He's unfortunately unable to get his audio working and camera working, so he will be joining later and commenting things on the chat only. And then Saverio from Italy, our own insect enthusiast and biotech specialist, will be hosting our session. He will be showcasing a wide range of different business opportunities, business cases, going through the rearing and breeding on basic level, but then moving on to the actual making business out of BSF. My name is Tom Lane. I'm the head of marketing at Manna Insect, and I will be going through the questions from the chat and the question sections. If you have any, please fill out or send the questions as soon as they come, and at the end of the session we will go through them. And just as a reminder to those of you who haven't been joining our previous webinars, there's usually so many questions that unfortunately we don't even have time to go through everything. So please do send them as soon as they come in, and I will actually try to go them in that order. So the faster you send in your questions, the more likely you are to get a response. But if we don't have time to go through all the questions during the session, then we will try to respond to those questions in a separate news article on our website www.mannainsect.com. Today's session will also be recorded. So even if you have to leave sometime during the session for something else, or if you have issues with your internet connection or audio, perhaps the slides are not moving as they should, you will still get the recording for yourself within a day or two. It depends on how long it takes for us to edit the necessary things in this recording. That said, I'd like to welcome Saverio Danubio from Italy, who's presenting our case today. And you may see some of the same slides that you've seen in previous sessions if you joined them or if you've seen the recordings. But these will be just a small part of the whole session. So the whole session as such is a totally new one. We haven't presented this anywhere before, but it may contain some of the same slides, so don't worry about it. These are just on building the same we're building a different story with some of the same slides. That said, Saverio, do you think you're ready to go? Because I'm ready to go and grab a
Yes,
coffee.
we can go. We can
All
go.
right, thanks, Saverio. You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm Saverio Danubio, and I am delighted to present today on behalf of Manna Insect the third webinar. And the content of this webinar is represented here. And we'll navigate around why and how from biowaste to income, making an insect business. So we will see who we are, the concrete examples from different continents, the potential of black soldier fly for small-scale operations, the practical limitations of black soldier fly and insect-based business, the challenges for a profitable insect business, what you need to know, and the concrete numbers to find and verify where to go and from where. As mentioned before, we are Manna Insect and Uka Marjanen, the CEO and founder with engineering background, will not join me right now, but hopefully he will be here ready for answering your question. And now I have the pleasure to cover the first part of the webinar. I am Saverio Danubio, industrial biotechnologist and sustainable solutions developer. Okay. For those that have joined the previous webinars, this slide is not new, but I think it's very emblematic because everybody wants to start a new business, thinks about a crate, and then how to create the first stock, and then how to move and expand and grow up. And yeah, we all want to go bigger and to make our business more profitable of higher suches. And uh, what happens very often is that then we forget that bigger sides corresponds also to bigger problems. So before we navigate into the right side, we suggest to stay the right time on the left side of this slide. So on that kind of sighting that actually gives to young entrepreneurs that level of experience in the field that can protect them from very catastrophic events. So we know that from one crate, the amplification is very easy. Also, the black butterfly allow very quick scale ups, but it's not everything related to the insects. Okay, there is the crate, there is the substrate, and there are the little larvae that you rear inside this organic matter. But then there is a lot more. And at the beginning, everybody starts with what or she has, and with a basic knowledge, and then the minimum, a very Spartan equipment, and in the space like rearing insects is so easy that you can do it everywhere. I even did it in a children school class, and I led this 10 years old passionate students to actually rear insects. So it was an amazing experience, and checking how they were like rearing insects from a YouTube streaming. It gave me a certain level of satisfaction, and luckily we had no problem. So if everything is well done, insects can be farmed everywhere. But then when you scale up, some requirements come. So you need to dedicate a proper amount of time to have a better processing equipment, also to move eventually, to migrate eventually from your garage or the space you have available for free to an area that you have to cover with a certain amount of cost, and also that requires to respect standards of safety and so on. So everybody wants to go big, but before these steps, let's see how we can safely go until there. Concrete examples how black flies are used in different continents, and the applications are many. Like, we are listening just some of them, but I'm sure we could make not one slide, but maybe 2, 3, or even more. So there is the upcycling of the animal manure to animal feed and fertilizer. This is mainly in developing countries with more relaxed legislation. And then there is the production of sustainable pet food ingredients. This is happening in Western countries and developing countries using high-end substrates. Then there is the biowaste service for municipalities and food companies, and can be done in all the countries area. And there is the removal of soy dependency by utilizing larvae to chicken on site, especially in developing countries and rural areas. And then provide black swordfly eggs and neonates from small black swordfly growers to large factories. This is a new opportunity. growing both in the developed and in the developing countries. Extract protein, chitin, and fat from larvae to different industry, a growing niche area, especially in Asia. Upcycle low-value biowaste to fertilizer, and this is also possible everywhere. Okay, apart from what is actually going on, but what is realistically an option for a young business, for an activity that has just started and wants to be profitable in a short period of time? So you can have an independent production, and you can freely sell to the market, initially to local chicken growers and for integrating their feed formulation. You can produce for third-party productions. So you produce a small quantity that then a contractor recovers and then process together with other production, and then everything goes mixed and it finishes in a unique product with the proper branding and selling operation. Or you can self-supply. You are already in the business of farming, growing vegetables, and you can get the benefit out of the larvae and the frass. And then there is the training. Your production can be a proof of concept and can be a site where there are practical workshops, educational programs, and so on. And then you can become an egg supplier, and you can breed and provide eggs for other locally. The challenges for a profitable insect business are many. I mean, you can find many bottlenecks in each stage of the production, and later we will see an overall scheme of a possible black sweaterfly production. But let's see now what most likely might be the points that you should consider. So the substrate, the availability and the quantity. In some cases, the composition, safety, and quality of the substrate could change. So you are convinced that you have a certain formulation, and this is the best formulation you can have according to your setup and conditions, but it changes, or the quality, the nutrients inside, and then the same it happens also to your larvae to absorb more or less. So you need to also verify the availability and the distance of different bio-wastes for the whole year. Sometimes it happens that your secondary organic matter provider, or bio-waste provider, as you want to call it, it's too far. And yeah, it would be amazing to recover all of that waste, but it doesn't make sense because it becomes too tricky, too expensive, and you have to come to this kind of evaluation. Try always to go for those kind of substrate providers that are locally available and that they have a stable production, or try to have more than one of the suppliers. In this way, you can in somehow be always sure that you have a certain amount of organic waste available. The legislation and the local rules. Well, here there are continental, national, and regional policies that could affect your business. And for example, as it happens in most of the time, it can limit the the range of biowaste that you can use. And this may reflect on your uh, business idea, on your final product production, on the cost that recovering the substrate that it's good for the low then may cost you. So it's not a negligible factor. Competitors. Well, soy meal and basic feed is still the king and will be for a while. So should not expect fast adoption of any insect-derived product. On the other side, finally, we are getting recognition. So insect businesses are emerging everywhere, and competitors have to be considered. Yeah, couple of years ago, you could be quite sure that you would be like exclusive on a certain area, but now it's no longer like this, or it becomes it's becoming uh, less accessible, less possible that you have an exclusive area and you can actually be the only in sales of insects derived products. But it's also a good thing because the market is so big and we have to in somehow also advertise the quality of the insect derived products, starting new businesses. The market volatility. The insect-derived products value may fluctuate according to global trends and alternatives, and especially soy and fish meal prices and availability. We have seen in the past years that the prices of the main protein sources for the animal feeding have been less and more available, and the prices went up and up, making the black swordfly larvae as a protein feed a more convenient and interesting solution. So the market, we cannot have an exact prediction of what will be the trend. It seems to be in the favor of the insect products, but we are still facing fluctuations. So let's always monitor that. Let's see what is the global situation and what is the local situation. Like, think local, but always look around you and see what is going on or what it may happen in a short time. Fragile production, outdoor methods. Unfortunately, when you produce in a basic way, in the most less efforts and practical way, like often happens at the beginning of the black swordfly rearing, you are exposed to a series of inconvenience that can happen to your business. So weather changes, predators, and contamination can influence your production. Apart from the weather change, where they can come one time and then never show again, the predators and the contamination can be a big problem. When you start facing them, it's not easy to get rid of them, I would say. So making your production in somehow more solid, it's a very important point. Infrastructure. Pre-processing activities may require more space for treating and containing the substrate. Yes, the bigger you become, the more sophisticated your infrastructure has to be. Post-processing machinery and insect meal nutritional requirements. Machinery purchase costs might not be justified by the small production, especially if customer has very strict requirements. So if you produce 1 kg, you cannot expect that you can cover the cost of purchasing a sophisticated machine that eventually, when is of a small size, it's just for the demonstration or it's for research. And when you purchase it on a big size, it's meant to process tons and to work sometimes even age 24. So at the beginning, the best thing is that you don't look too far with an exclusive, sophisticated product. Otherwise, your business will not make sense. It cannot be sustainable. And then, typically, small scale is best with live or dried larvae, and this is the reason because you can cut all the post processing costs, and sometimes it's the most expensive part of your uh, production. So limited customer type. This is another problem that at the beginning everybody could face, especially very small businesses, because small quantities are less appealing to wholesalers and make the selling more time consuming. Best customers are local, smaller, and medium scale chicken growers, but you have to find them and you have to install a fair communication with them. So, yeah, everybody dreams to deliver to one customer and to have less problems possible, but at the beginning, you have to struggle and you have to interact with many people. Benefits of insects and how to change feeding recipe with larvae is still not widely known or enough references to follow. Yes, we said that many are the farmers that are appreciating the insect use in the feeding formulations, but the majority is still waiting, is in somehow observing, in some others situation even ignoring, and they are proceeding for the way they always follow it. uh, right or wrong, I don't know, but we see amazing results using locally produced insects, and we hope that everybody may give a chance to this new feed to be used, and they eventually can compare all the benefits that we believe are present. So, spot local buyers for a cost-effective and profitable business that avoids shipping, logistic, and middlemen. Yeah, like if you are too little, don't make the things too complicated. Otherwise, the problem is behind the corner. If you close your deals locally, you save also time and money running behind all those possible issues related to the shipping, to the logistic, and also to the interaction of middlemen. Okay, creating a solid business plan, concrete numbers to find and verify. The theory is good, is nice to be well prepared, but then you have to meet the reality and you have to understand exactly in the place where you are what is possible to do and what is that will give you eventually a problem. And you can find that only living the reality, starting your business, and also hunting for some strictly related to your activity numbers. It doesn't matter if 150 kilometers far from you there is a successful business and you are just making a copy and paste. No way. It might bring you to a disaster if you simply want to run a medium high scale directly and you want to have a mega farm without checking if everything is on the right place. So find out concrete numbers, critical costs like the waste, like the eggs, because sometimes you don't want to have the nursery. Yeah, it requires a certain level of expertise that not everybody has, or that it's not convenient to have. So you buy eggs. And then the electricity and the labor and also the income, how much you can sell your product. Just try to understand exactly in that area. Like for the black soda flies, is still hard to define an exact number, but you can find it out in your area how the market is answering to this offer, and the same is for the frost. And then interview animal growers. Yeah, middlemen are nice, but they basically create a barrier. Go to the animal growers. If you have a small business, if you want to start a small business, most likely these people are those that will consume your larvae. And it's important to understand what are the fears and the motivations that they have in that area. They are key for your business definition. Calculate scenarios for pessimistic and optimistic options. Well, my suggestion is plan for resisting and not for maximizing. Sometimes uh, you push your business to the edge, and this is good. I mean, in theory, it shows braveness, and if you are lucky, you can scale up faster and better than your competitors. But the recent years are teaching us that we never know what is going to happen sooner or later. So my suggestion is make your business plan for resisting, and then you find your way to grow. Unpredictable factors are behind the corner. And another very useful tool that can help you in your elaborations is the Manna calculators. You can go on the Manna website, and there is a dedicated page where you can load all the data and information, and you most likely may have an overall picture of the situation in your eyes, and it may help. Find and agree pilot customers. First agreements and sales will give important inputs. Start production at micro scale, as I said before. Little investment may protect you from a big loss. Um, there is nothing to do. Yeah, like you start big. If you are lucky, you are already a big player. But uh, it's not always the most wise strategy. Scale while your demand grows. Anticipate the times without looking too far. Plant plant modularity, facilitate and safe growth plans. So look always forward, but keep your contact with the reality and with the moment you are living. So produce for who are your customer of the moments, or those of the next day, and make your plant in a way that you can upscale it in the most quick and easy way. The problem with the plants is that sometimes you downscale or you upscale too much, and then you like you lose money because your plant is sized too little, so you have to renovate so many parts of your plant. Or in some other cases, you utilize a big plant, and it becomes profitable when you reach a certain point of production. So you're losing money on the other way. So having a plan that can be modular, so step by step you can increase your production, it might be the ideal. Black sodafly versus other insects. Yes, well, we know that black sodafly is not the only insect that now is having recognition in many businesses. Yes, of course. But let's say that feed insects and black swordfly is the king, together with other flies and other insects. Yet they are like the engine of this insect revolution. This is because there is a growing community that is supporting this kind of movement. There are new technology every day. There is a new release, a new hardware, software, or tool that you can eventually use for your insect farming, and so you have to be always like updated. Otherwise, you miss something. You become obsolete in a couple of months, and then there is a high interest, and there are publications, there are studies, there are works, there are projects, and there are so many reasons for reading these insects, reducing the CO2 emission, converting bio waste, and when people approach to the idea, let's say globally, the average people that are not in the insect sector, yes, some of them may turn their face when they think, do I have to eat chicken that is being fed with an insect? But most of the cases, they are happy with the idea that they are contributing with their food choice to have uh, a more sustainable cycle. So insects are farmed locally. They reuse some organic leftover, and they become an excellent source of proteins and other nutrients for the animal that they consume. And eventually, they would also enjoy the taste and the higher quality product that we hope this change is leading. So there is a moderate consensus in this migration. Differently is for the food insects, that it's mostly driven by mealworms and crickets. There is a growing community as well. Technologies are emerging. The interest, the curiosity is very high, but compared to the feed sector, the number of people that are still like questioning themselves if consume it or not is larger. So it might be only a matter of time, but we should know that now the consensus in terms of feed for insects for the feed production is higher than those for the food production. And then there are insects that are involved in many other sectors. It comes to my mind, for example, the production of silk, and then the production of staining colors with the cochineal. And then, and then there are also insects that they have been used for tens of years, especially in the greenhouse agricultural activity, for as a for like limiting the numbers of parasites of some plants like tomatoes. Because they actually can operate as predators of these parasites. They are called functional insects. So it's still a niche sector, but it's something that can generate good profits, and I see that it's growing. Okay, and here there is an overview of the production. So we start from the bio waste, and then the processing of the bio waste, and then we load our substrate on a pallet, like inside a crate that most likely will be piled and will be placed on a pallet, especially in the case of the Manna Insect containers use and then you had your 5 days old larvae, and in this way you have your microsystem where there is the substrate reduction and the larvae growing, and then you move them inside the growing, the rearing area. In the case of the Manna containers, you close the door, and then there is this system that monitors all the parameters and makes you sleep better at night, because there is no surprise, no predators invasion, and no limited risk of contamination. And well, if a typhoon comes, I guess your house will fly away. So eventually, it will be a problem also for the container. But you can imagine that atmospheric agents are less impacting your business in a closed container than in an open space. And then there are all the post-processing operations that, as mentioned before, we suggest to reduce at the least, in a way that you invest the minimum amount, and you can be profitable very soon. Okay, so the Manna Mind Feed, the 20 feet container, it's a robust hardware with the smart software. This is just a recap for those that actually have never seen a Manna container and they didn't have the opportunity to join the previous webinars. And we can shortly say that 20 feet container size will give just a perfect setup for low energy black swordfly rearing and breeding. We cover the rearing and the breeding as well. Manna Mind creates optimal artificial climate for black swordfly in different growing cycles. Insulate steel container will keep uninvited visitor outside, rats, insects, and people. Yeah, unfortunately, these are situations to keep in mind. Shipping containers are stackable and easy to move, not a negligible factor. Manna Mind algorithm and sensors will keep all parameters always optimal and in full control. Manna Mind collects data, optimizes the rearing phase, and facilitates the use of novel substrate mixtures. And yeah, this is just a picture of how looks like a Manna container with the central unit, the Manna Mind, in the middle of the left wall, and then all the hardwares and equipments. Well, there are quite some sensors that you cannot see, but they work very well, and they monitor so many parameters that then they make your larvae to get fed very well in every phase of the animal, of the insect rearing, larvae rearing, because what happens is that, especially when you go already on like 6 pallets dimension, so you have a lot of biomass together in the same place. The conditions change. They change quite quickly. Every couple of days, you can see that your organic matter kind of behave differently, and you have to adjust your parameter. It's hard to do it in an open space, or you do it differently in an open space, but in a closed system, you can definitely adjust rapidly, and you can adapt every kind of new condition according to what the system knows that it's the best way to go in that phase of the larvae growing. Okay, next steps. Where to go from here? It's important to understand trends and challenges in your own country. How much does your country import food and animal feed? Example, the soy. What is the cost structure of animal feed for growers? How much and what type of biowaste is available? What is the legislation around using black swordfly as animal feed? Are there companies, entrepreneurs already rearing and selling black soda flies? Learn rearing and breeding in micro and mini scale. We will always say that over and over. We will repeat that. Start with 10 trays and expand from there. Be flexible as long as possible. Example, invest little to a fixed infrastructure or specific method. Create a business plan and steps to validate assumptions and test markets. Contact the local chicken growers, feed companies, etc., as said before. Use the business plan, reading experience, and customer validation to get funding. Loan, capital investment, government grants, and yes, this is the right way to go. I have seen some novel entrepreneurs making a bit of experience and then presenting themselves in some rooms where they can actually ask for this kind of support and they are growing. So, in my opinion, it's the right way to go. Manna customer path. Learn how to be profitable. Manna provides many services, and this is just a list of what can be provided and what are also the further suggestions. Like Manna training program gives customers fast track to learn and start profitable black soda fly farming. Black soda fly business and farming consultation, Manna container usage training, piloting and testing for ready-to-use Manna container in 3 6 months, full-scale productions with other containers, scale up to 1+4 containers with your own egg production. Um, yes, I mentioned before that Manna container can be used for the rearing and for the breeding, and we have tested our modular system in a combination up to a cluster that contains 4 containers for the reading and 1 for the breeding. And it, sorry, sorry, and it gave very good results. So comprehensive black soda fly business consultation in customer location, biomass recipe creating and testing service worldwide, Manna container assembly program, the use of Manna marketplace to find customers, and the education, the seminars, and the webinars. This is another picture again of the Manna container, and below you can see real pallets and trays loaded in the Manna container. Happy people already enjoying and using the Manna container in actually 2 different continents. And yeah, how to contact us? Fast track consultancy and training, climatized standalone containers. This is like a recap of our solutions. Setting up mini or small scale productions, because with a Manna container you can really start little and grow at a quite reasonable scale. And then business opportunity around modularized containers. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Saverio. That was great. And we do, again, have a good number of questions. I think we still have actually time that we could still take even more questions. But I'll start asking you some of the most important issues that people have been running into. Fabio is, first of all, thanking for the presentation. Um, but do you know cases when larvae were fed um, with let's see with that substrate and were processed and still lead to problems with those final products were used as animal feed. I'm not quite sure what Fabio is meaning here, but I think he's referring to the use of like chicken manure or post-consumer waste. Um, can there be are there any issues with those when fed to the larvae, or what kind of sort of um, problematic situations you may run into when you're feeding your larvae a certain type of organic waste? I mean, I'm sure that this somehow relates to, for example, the pathogens or do the larvae eat all kinds of bio waste? Um,
Yeah.
what would you say?
Thanks, Fabio, for your question. I don't know if you are the same of the other webinar. Actually, this is a kind of common question, and I also raised during the previous presentation this point. I don't remember at what stage, but yeah, some businesses they use really the basics of the black soldier flies, and as a biotechnologist, I would always suggest to not completely close the loop around one animal, uh, feeding the larvae grown from the manure generated from that animal, but examples all around the world demonstrated that this is working and there are no immediate problems with the pathogens and diseases. Time will tell, and I would always try to bring the larvae produced from the chicken manure to maybe fish or other animal, but it depends also how you process it. The more sophisticated your processing become, and eventually the better it is. But just to give you a straight answer, yes, some entrepreneurs are doing this very basic, and so far is working for them. I hope I got I understood correctly your question, but eventually, if you want to know more, you can write to Manna, and they will come back to me.
Yeah, perhaps I could also add here that we, for example, have been testing, using pig manure or chicken manure, and feeding that to the larvae, and they eat it well. It's the consumption of a substrate or the composition of this bio waste that you're feeding. There's plenty of variables, the temperature and the moisture and all that, and of course what the actual bio waste or organic waste is. There are some rare cases of certain types of substrate that the larvae don't eat, but I could add that they eat roughly about 99.9% of all types of organic waste as soon as it is, of the right temperature, moisture, and so on. And of course, the environment itself. That's why we have a climatized the breeding and rearing containers, because they do need, and like Saverio said in his presentation, they need the certain sort of kind of atmosphere and climate to be feeding especially well and growing especially well. So we can adjust, and we have the automated, like artificial intelligence driven system that automatically adjusts the climate to be the right kind. And the BSF is known for even if the organic waste would contain some sort of hazardous materials or pathogens, actually what the larvae does is that they emit this certain what would I call it?
Enzymes or
Enzymes, yes, exactly. That actually then destroy the waste and remove a pathogen, so that the larvae themselves don't really ever move the pathogens onwards in the cycle, but rather they kill and purify the waste so that it is usable as animal feed or the frass that comes out. But yes, definitely there may be challenges where regarding the environment. So, for example, if we use outdoor like old chicken shacks or cages, then there may be other species entering the cages. There may be, the climate issues that may be there, some sort of mold that may, take place in the cages themselves. So that may be an issue. But within a closed system, as a like a container, then we are, eliminating these issues that are involved in these cages. And the same could happen actually even in a factory size operation when you're constantly feeding the system, and it's basically running 24/7, and it's never stopping. It's never being, it would have to be closed totally down. The factory would have to be shut down for sanitation, for example, if something like this happened. So if we're using patches 10 to 14 days and then everything is taken out, then again a new patch is set in. It also helps avoid any of these harmful pathogens or any other issues regarding a certain patch of waste, for example. Another question from David. David is saying that I am aware that you can touch the feed substrate just once, and you can also keep adjusting the feed within each tray as the larvae grow. For example, you can add water or to the substrate as they grow. Have you found out if either method yields better results?
Well, every new formulation requires some time for observing the behavior of the larvae within the substrate matrix. How actually this ingredient formulation gives the right space and modifies through the larvae activity. And this takes time. Of course, if you identify that at a certain point of your larvae rearing, you adding water or any other thing may give you to a good result, you can go for that. But you have to keep in mind that when you upscale, your time has a certain value, and the biggest is the number of operation that you add to your production. The highest is the risk that something doesn't work, and you make your system more expensive and eventually even more fragile. This is my point of view now, but then you can better articulate, and we can discuss about that.
Okay, then Anthony is saying that the presentation has basically been mostly about the chicken feed production and generally animal feed production. What about manufacturing of fertilizer? What about the frass?
Yeah, the frass, it's been under evaluated for many years, but I would say from the last year, especially with the shortage of some artificial fertilizer, or from, let's say, the reduction of the availability of the biggest nitrogen, phosphor, and potassium sources that usually supply all the farmers globally. The frass from the black fly uh, is being noticed and is being applied in many situations. There are still studies that are going, and that soon will release the results, and will actually give the right indication in terms of quantities and manner of application. But the fertilizer is absolutely something that we do not forget to put in our business plan. And the value of the fertilizer, I repeat, it's always a regional appreciation of that product that can have a one cost or the double of that cost, but it's definitely in the 2023 not something that you can exclude from your business plan, because it's very valuable.
Exactly. Totally agree with Saverio here. And actually, what we have covered the fertilizer part, what's commonly called frass. We have covered that in earlier webinars, and also in the next one, we will go through some of the business economics of and actual calculations regarding the input and output, what is getting, what kind of costs are involved, and what you're getting out. And FRAS is definitely one major business opportunity. And even in cases, let's say, for example, if we would somewhere in the EU area, we would feed the larvae like the kind of food waste that is from legislative point of view registered to be the kind of waste that you can't consume or feed to your animals, even if gone through this upcycling process. If it would be, for example, chicken manure or even human manure, you can't then feed the larvae to other animals. But what you could do is still to produce frass, and even the larvae can be then be dried or grounded and then be used as a fertilizer. So even in cases where the larvae cannot be fed for humans or to animals, then even that may be a nice outcome. And there are, of course, other business cases as well. We've talked in earlier sessions about the biofuels, and there's the medical and biomedical opportunities regarding chitin. We can use the larvae for seafood. We're using chicken in many of our examples because most of our customers are actually using the larvae as part of their poultry or chicken diets. That's the reason. But of course, there are plenty of different cases, as Saverio has explained. A question from Rashad. What are the benefits of insect-based feed over soy, and what the reasons customers like to move on this insect-based feed? And before I actually forward this to Saverio, I'd like to point out that actually we have just last week produced, and actually the week before as well, a series of articles regarding especially comparing the soy over insects and insects over soy. So if you head on to mannainsect.com, you will actually find at the article section 5 long articles explaining the differences and especially the benefits of using insects over soy. But Saverio, how would you sum it up?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a very globalized world, but sometimes things don't work very well. So first of all, I would say if you have your local, regional, national insect proteins production, eventually you might be more secure that your business can survive in the next years. Okay, let's take it just as a backup option. First of all, in terms of sustainability, well, soy are maybe not making the good of the environment, and especially of the Amazonian forests. This is my opinion. And regarding the nutritional factors, when you feed your livestock with insects, you are not only introducing proteins. By the way, we are talking about insects. So naturally, animals have been feeding themselves, especially covering the protein part of their diet with the insects, because they are what they usually find around them. Regarding the soy, it's a different story, I would say. But going beyond that, feeding livestock with insects, it not only provides proteins, but also fat, but also other molecules that are kind of stimulants for the animal health, and they even improve the animal pigmentation, the color, in some cases even the taste. And I would say that insects meals are better.
The article series covering comparisons between BSF larvae and soy, we actually covered 5 different aspects. One of them was cost efficiency. but of course also relates to if you have to pay for the bio waste and yeah, where transportation costs related and so forth. But that is definitely something that we're covering in the next webinar in late April. But cost efficiency was one reason. The other was sustainability, like what Saverio just said, nutritional value, but then also reduced competition with human food, because soy is of course also used as a human food, and then the easiness and a possibility to breed and grow black soldier fly basically anywhere around the world in any weather conditions with these climatized containers, for example, which you really can't do with soy. Soy is very much related to a certain environment and certain land area, certain type of soil and lots of water and so forth. So plenty of issues regarding that. But you should definitely, Rashad, head on to the Manna Insect website and read the article series there. By the way, we are sharing lots of statistics, surveys, business cases, news, and also these articles on our LinkedIn profile as well. So if you're looking for generally information about insect industry and black soldier fly rearing overall, any kinds of news around the world, we are collecting all these and publishing those on our LinkedIn profile on a daily basis. So every day there's something new regarding BSF. Well, almost every day. We do promote these webinars there as well. Another question from Anthony. Before a chicken or a fish farmer decides to buy insect-based feed, he must have experienced its benefits over soy. These benefits are in the form of the impact of insect-based feeds on the growth of the chickens and fish and the price. Can you explain, are there other benefits of this feed over the like conventional soy ones? And I think you also already covered that, but do
Yeah.
you still come up with some other differences?
Well, I would bring the example of the ocean, the supermarket chain that created a dedicated label called, I'm sorry, my French is not really good, but it's Les poissons les nourris de l'insecte, something like the fish fed with the insects, and they found so many advantages in feeding, in having a fish product line where where the fish was completely fed with the insects, and yeah, I believe that. Specifically in the case of the black soda fly, some products, some formulation that include also black soda fly can be better than those today used that are soy based. I cannot go in the specific case. Sometimes some breeds may be so well adapted that it seems to be born to be fed with the soy. So, in generically talking, I believe that insect feed is superior to soy.
Okay. Another question from Fabio. He's asking, do you use generally a side stream of some kind of production bio waste or just generally waste? And if you use substrate of different composition day by day, I guess what he's asking is more like, is it beneficial or could it be different bio waste substrate every day?
In our experience, we have been dealing with any kind of substrate. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's not really the substrate that you dream to use, and you have to come to the reality of the fact, and you have to realize where you are, what you can obtain, how you can maximize in terms of business, but also in terms of impact on the environment. You can feed your larvae not because they have to give you a product, but because they eventually have to bioremediate. that kind of substance. So I don't know how polluted, how bad can be your starting substrate, but this is what you have to evaluate very carefully. Like, if you suspect that your substrate is not exactly optimal or good or can lead to any kind of problematic, you have to make your initial test and eventually some analysis, and you have to see how your insect business can become profitable selling insect larvae, or makes profit upstream because actually is bioremediating a polluted substance.
Yeah, perhaps I could add a slightly different point of view. For example, some of our customers are getting paid to remove organic waste, so they don't really care too much what is the outcome, or maybe they're just interested in the frass, so they're not even thinking about the benefits of feeding the larvae to animals or whatever they want to do with that, but they rather see the business in upcycling the waste. So in that sense, yes, we could feed the larva just about anything. But again, going back to the earlier response, uh, the moisture, the temperature, everything relates to how fast the larvae are able to consume the waste. But of course, if we try to optimize the production of larvae or upcycling of the waste, then it would preferably need to be constant so that we can optimize the receipt as well as the climate for consuming the certain kind of waste. So definitely there are variables that we need to take into account. We are in most customer cases focusing on setting up a certain receipt for example, removing banana leaves or waste potatoes or something like pig manure, so that it's most of the time at the same level or similar substrate for the feed. But yes, definitely you could have different substrate every day, but then it's just not that easy to predict and get the receipt right to see how much larva is being coming out and how fast they grow and so forth. But Fabio is still asking more questions and saying, how do you see the final product since the composition, especially in fatty acids, differs according to the substrate? And how does the end buyer see the difference?
Well, we know that if you feed the larvae differently, you get a different output, and this is a fact. So, if you feed every day your larvae in a different way, I guess, and this happens randomly, I guess at the end of the day, you don't know what actually your product is and how good your product is. So, it's possible to change your substrate formulation every day or every, who knows, every season, but you should be aware. And with the Manna container, for example, you can modulate if something goes wrong because you added the substrate that it's more or less watery, or has a different characteristic that facilitate or not the larvae rearing. But my suggestion is to not be so creative on the substrate formulation. If you are making insect farming for business, you have to reduce the variability of your substrate at the least. In this way, less problems may come. So it's up to you. Like, if you want to have every day a different substrate to provide to your larvae, it means that every day you have to go there, and every day you have to load your crates with the new substrate. So you are investing time, and you are going in a feed batch like approach, which is a completely different logic than the simple batch. The more you expose yourself to the more you are in contact with the crates, and the more you can be even a carrier of contaminants. And eventually, all of this, unless there is a big plan behind that I cannot imagine, is not something I would suggest.
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe Fabio has a business case, for example, when his customers would be restaurants, so that there's lots of different types of food waste, or maybe supermarkets, so that you have that container in a supermarket market parking lot or backyard, and every day the excess vegetables or other kind of food waste is being fed to the larvae. And then it's mostly about really getting rid of the recycling cost and
Mm.
transportation cost rather than getting rich fat larvae out of it or so forth. Maybe it's all is being used as trash. We don't really know at this point.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, if you supermarket or restaurant waste at the end they might be kind of variegated, but if when you go in the pre-processing phase you try to mix all of this, you have to increase the exposure of this substrate or the exposure of the nutrients of the part that the larvae can be fed on to the insects. So you process that, you reduce the size, you reduce it, and you mix it. So at the end of the day, what was a meat source and what was like a sugar source, it goes together, and you don't have to be afraid that today the restaurant is cooking that and the day after is cooking that. Of course, if one day is a barbecue and another day is completely vegetarian, yeah, there might be a difference. But usually, when you are not in a micro scale but in a mini scale, you recover some a certain amount of tons of waste. You pre-process it, you mix it, and you might have an sort of homogeneous blend.
I was just thinking, playing with the idea of one day feeding the larvae with Chinese food, and the other day it would be Indian and then perhaps Italian. So
Yeah.
so I wonder if a taste carries on. So the chicken, wonder if a chicken like more tandoori flavor larvae or perhaps something else. I don't know. But Anthony is back with a question. What type of biowastes do you recommend as best for growing BSF in West African countries such as Nigeria?
Oh, we are receiving a lot of requests from Nigeria, and I know that Anthony might not feel alone. There are great opportunities down there, and the answer is in the presentation I did before. I always suggest you to rely on the substrate source that is just behind your corner, and the one that you can count all the year round, and the one that you can tie the best agreements with, and the one that costs you the least. So I thank Anthony for raising so many questions, and it would be nice if we can continue this interaction also through the Manna mail, and we can see if his business actually is ready to open the wings.
Exactly. There was a question from Arne. I believe Arne is from Norway, and he's asking how high are the typical yields from one container. Perhaps I can answer that. But the typical sort of average numbers regarding one container is that in one growth cycle, in one rearing cycle, which is 10 to 14 days. So basically, you could run either 2 or 3 batches per month, and the one rearing cycle consumes roughly about 3.5 tons of biowaste. So if you produce 3 batches per month, then it's roughly about 10 tons, which requires roughly about 135 grams of BSF eggs per cycle. It produces one cycle produces roughly about 550 kilograms of live BSF larvae, which again means that if you produce 2 or 3 batches, it varies between 1,000 and roughly about 15 or 1,600 kilograms per month. But at best case scenarios, we've seen much greater numbers. So we can even see that somebody is producing 700 to 800 kilograms per cycle, the larvae. So it requires a lot of testing we will receive, and of course, plenty of other things to take into account as well. But these are the average numbers, and so on. And by the way, frass, the fertilizer, one production cycle, one rearing cycle, produces roughly about 850 kilograms of fertilizer, which can again be over 1,000 kilograms per cycle in the right conditions. A question from Gonzalo: what is the Manna advice for cleaning the trays between cycles?
This is a problem that other business have with the Manna container. I hope one day you will see that the cleaning part is not exactly a big problem. And also regarding the frass production, it may sound that we produce less frass, but this is because the larvae usually absorb more because they are in a condition where they can grow better. And also because our frass is drier. So eventually the water content of who produce more frass is higher. So you basically have a bigger amount of frass because you have more water. And if it means that you have more water, it means that your crates it's dirtier. So with Mana, the cleaning part is not a huge problem.
This is actually something that we run across all the time. People are asking, so how do you wash your larvae? We don't wash them, because if the recipe is optimal, and it can even reduce water from the biomass, the actual substrate, so that the larvae are actually quite clean coming out, which again means that the trays are quite clean as well. So we don't really need excessive washing as such, like we've seen in many cases. It just means that the recipe is probably not optimal. Another question from David: how do you measure moisture content of a substrate?
We have patented sensors, I would say. So Manna may seem to provide a simple hardware, but there is a lot of work behind that, and we can clearly monitor in from the first second until the last one what is going on in each tray, and this actually gives the possibility to adjust the conditions in a immediate time.
I'm seeing that we're running out of time. We don't unfortunately have
Yeah.
time to go through all the questions, but I think we still have time for at least one, maybe two. And Gonzalo is asking: I have seen some projects making hydrolyzed protein. Do you think this could be a way to bend the rules in the European Union to use any type of feed for the larvae? I have absolutely no idea what a hydrolyzed protein means. Perhaps Saverio, you know?
Uh, it it's it would be nice to have this question better explained, but uh, as I was saying before, yes, you want to further process the larvae, but how much does it cost to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Then again, bending the rules in the European Union, I would probably not try to bend the rules, but rather find a business case that
Yeah.
doesn't require bending the rules, right? So we don't want you to take any unnecessary risks that your operation would be somehow hazardous as an end product, or your business case would be in problems because of unexplained cost, or unnecessary cost, and so forth. So perhaps not bending the rules is not the thing. One last thing. Let's see. Let's take one here from Tony. I have a question related to cost production. BSF larvae meal. Which one? Uh, let's see. Which one the cheaper to produce fish meal or BSF larvae meal? Okay. Comparing fish meal and larvae meal. BSF meal takes a lot of steps to produce meal compared to fish meal for aqua feed. What do you think?
Oh, well, fish meal is becoming a problem for the fish farmers that have not any kind of subsidize, and it's in some situations touching the $2,000 per ton. Sometimes it's not available. It's in most of the cases not sustainable at all. And we go back to the same story of the soy. Everybody thinks that soy is a food for humans, but just few people know that probably something like 90% of the soy world produced is going into the animal feed, and people imagine the fish as food for humans, but the story behind is that they rarely they recycle the fish leftovers and they produce fish meal. So every time you use a fish meal, you are actually removing the fish from somebody else's plate. Um, and this is something I cannot personally tolerate. The quality of the fish meal is very high. We know that. In I don't know if I got correctly all the question, but processing the black fly larvae at the level that they can become a protein meal, they can become something close to the fish meal. It requires the high investments. So you have to go high with your production scale, and you have to invest a lot. It's not the case of this webinar where we were in somehow accompanying small entrepreneurs into the first step, but you can absolutely obtain a good quality black fly meal that you can try to use as a substitute to the fish meal. And the larvae can be fed to the fish, but it depends what is the kind of fish farming you are having and the kind of animal. Um, Sometimes you need something that floats on the surface of your fish farming pool. Some other times the fish is so robust and it's so starved that can catch the larvae wherever it goes. And so it should be more case specific, but in general, go for insects and save money and make a more sustainable choice. Don't buy fish meal if you can.
Yes, I totally agree with Saverio. I think it's definitely not sustainable at all. I mean, even if you're using other fish to create the fish meal for your, let's say, salmon, for example, in Norway, the amount of small fish that you need to catch in order to create the fish meal is extraordinarily big. It's definitely not sustainable. It's one of the causes for overfishing. But we've actually shared several articles on aquafeed. Different, for example, research cases in our LinkedIn profile during March. Early on March, I believe there's at least a few different articles related to, for example, shrimps and then salmon, and I think there was something else as well regarding aquafeed. So if you want to see actual research statistics, how and why insects and especially BSF larvae would be a great option for fish meal, you should definitely head on to our LinkedIn company page. So LinkedIn.com and then search for Manna Insect and follow that company page because there's plenty of information coming out every day. So thank you, Saverio. It's been a pleasure as well, always. There's a few questions still unanswered, but I think we need to leave those for later. We'll try to get a new article on our website explaining and responding more to these questions, as well as some of the other questions from earlier sessions that we haven't yet answered. There will be articles on her website. I promise you that. I just don't know the timeline yet when we have time to actually create those because there's so many things going on at the moment. Thank you for all participants. It's been a pleasure as always with you too. Plenty of really, really, really good questions, really timely and important questions. And next time, in April, the actual date would be, I think it was April 27th. Yes, April 27th. Our next webinar topic will be business economics of insect production at local scale and actual calculating of profitability for a mini slash small scale insect farm. So plenty of calculations for different cases regarding the man hours, electricity, the waste costs, transportation costs. What else? The cost of the money you get from selling the frass and the larvae and lots of other things. So stay tuned for the next session. Follow the company page on LinkedIn. And by the way, if you haven't run into it yet, I would definitely urge you to check out Ento Connect, which is a new networking
Yes.
platform for people interested in insect businesses. So ento/connect.com. Check it out and send me perhaps Saverio and you can other us at Manna as well. Send us a networking invitation. We'd be glad to connect. I'll talk to you later. See you in April, and all of you will be receiving an email from me with the recording, and we will have to have a look if we can share some of the actual slide materials. Can't promise you that yet, but Nora was asking if we can get access to the materials. I don't know yet. We have to check if there are any third-party visualizations that we can't share, but I'll dig into it later. But you will receive an email from me in a couple of days' time. Until the next time. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye bye.